that break. This is still the AM Club coming to you live from the MX24 studios, Oleander Street, East Legon, Accra, Ghana. My name is Miriam Uduakumenta, and this is the news review segment of the AM Club show. I'm excited to be here, and I'm sure that you're ready to delve into the big conversations with us this morning. My panelists are already seated. It's a beautiful morning with men all around me. I feel very, very safe. Now, your money deserves a safest home with Telesil Cash. You're protected every step of the way. No risk, no worries, no long stories, just peace of mind. Dial star 110 hash or download the Telecel Play app now for secure transactions. Telecel Cash, the safer choice. Now, 8 minutes are thus far. The Lord has helped us. The countdown is on, and it actually kick-started yesterday. Join us as we officially begin the 25th anniversary celebration of the Ultimate Charismatic Center on Sunday, the 20th, which was yesterday. The kick-started at 10 a.m. Now, this year's celebration under the theme Ebenezer, it's a time to reflect on God's faithfulness over the past 25 years and to look ahead with thanksgiving and expectations. Now, the celebration continues on Tuesday, the 28th of July, 9 a.m., Wednesday, the 29th of July, to Friday, the 31st of July. That will be 6 p.m. each evening. Now, Grand Thanksgiving, that'll be on the 2nd of August, Sunday at 10 a.m. Ministering throughout the anniversary celebration will be Prophet A.A. Prempe, Lady Rosemont Prempe, and Reverend Eastwood Anaba. Now, the venue is Glory Temple Ultimate Charismatic Center, Dome Pillar 2. Come with your family, friends, as we celebrate 25 years of God's goodness and faithfulness. Your Ebenezer testimony awaits you. So I hope to see you from Tuesday. Tomorrow is at 9 a.m. Then on Wednesday it's at 6 p.m. Thursday at 6 p.m. Friday at 6 p.m. But also on Sunday, which is the grand finale, will be at 10 a.m. as we celebrate and thank God for how far He has brought us. Let's celebrate together. Back into the studio, my guests are already seated. Like I said earlier, is the news review segment of the AM Club show. Joining me this morning, I've already started accusing him, is Benjamin Kwame Amankwa, his NDC Communications team member, and Al-Hassan Kojobedu, President, Center for Education Leadership, Policy and Innovation Africa. Also, Jesse Jakes represents the MPP. He is a team member of the MPP Communications team. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Mimi.
How are we doing?
Great.
Good morning, Mimi. I feel very safe. I'm telling you guys. If I hear there's a bomb outside, I just rest because the gentlemen are here to protect me. Thank you all so much for coming. Last week was very eventful. Very eventful, from Wontumi to finance minister to comments after the finance minister's mid-year budget review, and we ended the year with a prayer from Honorable Kojo Ponkroma yesterday. I don't know whether the video was from yesterday though, but a video is circulating on social media of he praying for the president, which is actually very beautiful to watch. And so, very eventful week, by the way.
Yep.
Now let's get into our conversation for this morning. Wontumi, a win for illegal mining or political witch hunting. And please breathe before you speak on this one. Because the conversations have, I think, erupted, premature. I saw my very favorite person in Parliament, which is Afenyo Markins, commenting on what had happened. In fact, when he was supposed to speak on the mid-year budget review, he decided to go that route, which, in my opinion, another moment to be a little disappointed in my favorite person in Parliament. But again, I mean, it's politicking, so you can allow that. But anyway, I think when we were given the platform to speak on certain things, certain pertinent issues, we shouldn't politicize it. But I mean, they are who they are. It's what it is. But then let's just come back to, so this conversation is on two parts. Is it a win for illegal mining? Because, we've been fighting this for quite some time now. And we're asking that the big men who are involved in illegal mining be captured and leave the little boys who just went there for the boys, because of the fundamental issue we're dealing with, which is, unemployment in this country. Or is it political witch hunting? Like the MPP has purported that this has got nothing to do with, this has got nothing to do with the fight against corruption. This is political witch hunting. This is, Wontumi is a political prisoner, and all of these conversations coming up. I'm going to start with you. What do you think this looks like realistically? I'm going to start with you.
Thank you. I think that we need to understand the issue before us. It is not about politics. Wontumi's case is practically about the environment, Ghana's floras and faunas and rule of law interplaying here. Illegal mining, as we call galamsey, has had very devastating effect. We sit in Accra, and we are feeling the ripple effect of the devastation illegal mining has occasioned on our environment, which is why when Parliament met to decide on the sanctions, the Minerals and the Mining and Minerals Act 2006, as amended, Act 703 as amended, they thought that because of the gravity of the damage and the repercussions on the collective well-being of Ghanaian citizens, the sanctions or the punishment should be that biting.
Right.
You see? So it is unfortunate, again, to hear political commentators, notably from the opposition party, but it's understandable. You know, that's what they do. Opposition is going to have their say, so they have to have the say. My only worry is the fact that they are not being honest with even the commentaries that are coming out.
Okay.
So it has nothing to do with politics. It's just about environmental justice. If you look at the judgment and the reasoning behind Justice Kokuvite's sentencing, which, by the way, I have heard Counsel Atacha talk about the fact that the judge dwelled or emphatically said he was using Wontumi as a deterrent. Then it means that the sentencing was too harsh. Presupposing that if you want to punish somebody or use somebody as deterrent, then you cannot, or the judge is not permitted or allowed to give the 20 years. Honestly, that is legal
we need
bollocks.
A deterrent for
yes, that's it. So the bottom line is that universally, criminal sentencing is premised on 5 main objectives. Deterrence is one. You see, punishment, reformation, protection of the society, and denunciation. So a sentence, whether 1 day, 1 year, 10 years, 100 years, would have to deter somebody else from not doing it.
In whichever form it comes.
Yes. So for Atacha to be saying that, but the judge said that deterrence, and for deterrence, 20 years is harsh. No, it's neither here nor there. If we look at the effect, the magnitude of what galamsey is doing to all of us in Ghana, today somebody sits in Volta region, far away from the mining site, and yet the water he drinks is polluted. Somebody is in Gumamangwasi, far away from mining site, and yet the contemporary is polluted, because these water bodies travel through the length and breadth of the country. And you don't know, even those who are by it might not even be the ones drinking it, because it's flowing away. So let's not allow politicians to deceive us and to say that it is a political thing. No, it has nothing to do. If you view this through the lens of environmental justice, you come to appreciate the fact that even the judge was kind and charitable. Yes, Wontumi ought to have been given 25 years. For those asking for clemency from president, I wonder if we understand what we are dealing with, because we are not done with galamsey yet. It is still there.
Yeah, the arrest of Wontumi,
yes,
dealing him with
our water bodies are getting better, but they are not out of the wood yet. So if you pardon Wontumi now, what are you saying? You are emboldening others to now go back. After all, they will be pardoned. You talked about the fact that people are saying if it's political witch hunt and pardon. Look, the big mentioning that we need to arrest the big boys. Wontumi is not a small boy. So it's another great day in Ghana to see that a government, especially coming from the past where we had a president who was just clearing them. This Wontumi issue, it has to be on record. It didn't even start under this government.
Absolutely.
Yes. It came up, and his president said, no, Akontamino was not involved. But here we are. The fact as submitted to the court clearly and amply detailed the fact that he was deliberate in all that he did, which is why the judge didn't give the 15 years that they're asking for.
Yeah.
Because the breaches were not technical. Mimi, if I run into a traffic light with my car, and after examination, it was found out that it was a mechanical fault, it will be different. Judge's reasoning will be different from if I was caught to have been driving under influence of alcohol or I was text driving.
Yes.
You see? Meaning that I knew the consequences thereof.
Yeah.
But a brake failure, I wouldn't have known. Yes, so it will be different. So it is not, let's not allow the politicians to make it like as politics. It's not politics.
Okay. Thank you.
It's a great win for galamsey.
Yes,
it's a great win for galamsey.
Okay. All
The
right.
fight against galamsey, actually.
All righty. Now, that is Al Hassan's take on this conversation on whether or not this Wontumi case is a win for illegal mining or political witch hunt. I'm going to go straight to Benjamin. Benjamin, good morning. How are you doing, sir?
Good morning.
You're welcome back from your commercial break.
Thank you. You're looking very sweet this morning.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you.
Let me say that human nature demands that when something bad happens to a friend, a family member, we sympathize with the person. Sincerely, for somebody we had known politically, as a father, as a political leader in a whole Ashanti region, being convicted and sentenced to 20 years in prison. Of course, it's normal that people will sympathize, people will react. This is a man who has family, he has businesses, and for that reason, all those who depend on Wontumi, it is just human. We can blame them for complaining. But one thing we need to understand is the fact that the jurisdiction of the courts in Ghana is not invoked by emotional outbursts. The jurisdiction of the courts in Ghana are invoked by legal principles, statute, and the provisions of the Constitution of Ghana. So whilst it is normal for humans to sympathize with colleagues, friends, when a court takes a decision, we cannot jettison the demands of our law and go for emotion. What are the main issues before the court on which the judge decided on? The issues are that Chairman Wontumi assigned a mineral right that he has lawfully gained to another without the permission of the minister. That's one of the major issues. Article 257(6) vests all mineral resources in this country in the citizens of Ghana. Even the president holds the mineral rights in trust for the citizens, which tells you that even the president of Ghana cannot do with the mineral resources of Ghana as he wishes, because he, as the head, only holds that trust. So if you want to take any decision on it, he has to seek or sought the permission. That is why any major decision on the mineral right, the president needs to come to parliament, get parliamentary approval, because parliament, that is where we have the representatives of the citizens of Ghana who accept this step. So, you see, the MPP is confusing the issues, and it's a political strategy. Let's confuse them so that they are not able to determine the facts from the noise, and that then people will start sympathizing and going against, going for the judge. But that's not the issue. The issue is that you have license, but before you assign that license to another person to work on that site, you need the permission and approval of the minister. The fact is, did Wontumi assign his mineral rights or his concession to another? The fact is, yes. Even in the court document, he didn't dispute this. But the only thing he disputed was that he didn't ask the gentleman to go and mine, and that he only asked the gentleman to go and do reclamation. Even the reclamation, before you ask somebody to go and do reclamation on your concession, you still need the permission and approval of the minister. That's what the law says. So if you bring it here, he will be found guilty. If you send it the other way, he will be found guilty. One argument that the MPP is making, which is fallacious and laughable, is the fact that assignment should be written. According to the law, if we say Wontumi has assigned his mineral rights to another, then where is the document showing that he has assigned the mineral right? Of course, the law says that assignment should be written. But the judge, if you go into the judgment, the judge says that when Wontumi was questioned, when was the last time he has even filed document concerning his company, Akonta Mining? He said he can't remember. And he has determined from the transactions of the document, based on evidence of both the prosecution witness one and all other things, that it is normal that Wontumi does not like paperwork when it comes to dealing with issues. And so you can, by your own conduct, disobey the rules, and at the same time want to now use you disobeying the rules as a defense for yourself. You can't appropriate and reprobate. You get the point? You are supposed to always keep documents when you are dealing with company. You refuse, and you didn't do it. And mind you, what they are not averting their mind to is that there can also be oral contracts. Contracts are not always written. If you go into law, if I sit here and we have an agreement on issue and all the other elements of contract exist, the mere fact that what we have said is not written down does not exonerate any of us from the fact that we have entered into a legally binding contract. So the mere fact that you refuse to obey the law by keeping documents and dealing with things in a documented manner will not now be your defense for the fact that because when you were entering into contract with prosecution witness one, it is not written down, and so it means there's no, you have not assigned mineral rights.
Okay.
Another issue we need to consider, Mimi, is the fact that Wontumi says that he wants PW1 to reclaim the land, but the fact is that he is not going to pay him, and that after the reclamation, coconut trees are supposed to be planted, and PW1 is supposed to harvest from those coconut trees to pay for the reclamation. Do you know what we mean by reclamation? Have you seen a galamsey destroy land before? To reclaim a galamsey land, if I will not lie, will be even more costly than engaging in the mining itself. Do you get the point?
Yeah.
So there is no logical coherence in Wontumi argument that was brought before the court, and that Justice Kokuvite was right, as she should be, guided by legal principles and the rules of the both Constitution and the Mining Act to jail Wontumi. Like my colleague said, the presiding judge was even charitable.
Okay. Now, still on this case, and I'm staying with you. I was supposed to move forward, but I mean, there have been, conversations that spark out of this particular one that says that, okay, well, Wontumi is at fault, so he's gone to jail. How about Yamin? How about Abanga? How about their issues? Individuals whose names have popped up who are supposed to be NDC, affiliates who are also captured in this whole illegal mining conversation. What then happens to them? Are we still working on making sure that they also face the full rigors of the law, like we're making Wontumi?
Maybe
Is it a kind ask?
Oh yeah, of course.
Maybe
I mean,
those who are raising those questions, they are absolutely right, and I support them 101%. Why? If Wontumi can go to jail, if Yamin is found to be guilty or engaging in galamsey, he should face the full rigors of the law. I am not going to hold brief for anybody. In fact, to be able to engage in the reset agenda and transform Ghana, we must call a spade a spade. It's no longer time for anybody to protect anyone because he's my party person, he's my friend, he's my father. If my father is engaged in galamsey, if the fact and the law prescribes that these are the sanctions and the punishment the person should go through. So those who are calling for the fast tracking of the investigation on Yamin and other NDC people who have been mentioned, of course, I think that Yoko should fast track that investigation, publish the report publicly, and let the decision that Yoko has taken on this gentleman be made known.
Yeah.
And if the the fact point to the direction that they should be prosecuted, they should be sent to court and be prosecuted.
All right. Now we're moving straight to Jesse. Jesse, good morning once again.
Mimi, good
Your
morning.
take on whether or not Wontumi's case is a win for illegal mining or it's political witch hunting.
All right, let me say a very good morning to you and to my colleagues on this show, and a very good morning to the incoming national chairman of the MPP, Honorable Boasiako. Mimi, I always have this statement that I always say, that national development and accountability require strong institutions. In fact, responsible leadership and a desire to serve the interests of the people. I mean, I've sat on this show to condemn illegal mining, and the records are there. And I will not sit on this show to second anybody who wants to sugarcoat the arrest of Chairman Wontumi. I mean, illegal mining poses an existential threat to all of us. And so, irrespective of our political party and our political divide, I don't think that it is morally right for us to bring in political scores. Having said that, if the court has found Chairman Wontumi guilty, I think that we need to respect the judicial process. If his defense counsel believes that the judgment was flawed, the appropriate avenue is the appellate process. And so he can go through the appellate process to maybe reopen the case and to look into some of the matters. But I think that it's high time we fight galamsey to the toe, because it has become a thorn in the flesh of this country. I mean, for decades, Nanadu came in and also did his best to fight against illegal mining. He placed sanctions on illegal mining for almost 2 years, started seizing excavators and all of that. And from the horse's own mouth, he said that it cost him his votes in the 2020 election. So you can really see that both government have shown their interest in fighting illegal mining, both MPP and NDC. And I think that it's high time or imperative that we join hands together to fight the illegal mining. Aside that, if the president is serious about fighting illegal mining, because the backstops are the president, there is a right way of doing things and there is a wrong way of doing things. If the president is serious about fighting illegal mining, I think that there are some group of people in his household that must also face the full force of the law. Especially coming from the president, that he said he knows that most of his people are involved in illegal mining. And so we want to see the most of his
correction. The president never said, I'm sorry to interject.
What did he say?
Okay, so
he
what
said
did
the
he say?
president said that he knows that his people are
So what did he say?
What did he
involved
say?
in
So
illegal
what did he
mining.
say?
The president never said that. It is something that MPP people are sharing on social
So what did
media.
he say?
I
He
think
never said
Have you
anything
seen
like
the
that.
video he's talking
literally,
about?
the president sought to make the assertion that he's aware
Yes.
that even some people in his government may be involved in illegal mining.
Exactly.
And you see, that's common sense.
So let me end on my
Because it
statement.
cannot be.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
now,
yes,
so-
exactly.
That
since
only
we have-
one people-
we have
one
some sort of
group of people,
I haven't
yeah.
seen the video, so I'm not going to
Exactly. So
speak to
thank
it.
you for the clarification. And so since the president accepts the fact that some appointees in his administration are involved in galamsey,
Yes, I will,
Maybe.
no.
Even
Just
even
say, he's
if
saying emphatically, we need to correct the fact. President Mahama never said that his
Okay.
appointees
I'm
are engaged
going
in
to-
galamsey.
Okay.
We have
Guys,
to
you know what to
take
do.
note
Okay.
of that.
Figure
All
out
right.
that video for me.
All right,
Let's
thank
see
you.
if
And so,
yeah.
whilst your producers are verifying the statement, I think that the president must start from his own backyard and start applying the same level of law that was given to Chairman Wontumi to the same people in his administration. And in fact, galamsey was one of their flagship, actionable moves in their campaign manifesto. So we expect the same level of law to be applied to some of these people in their administration. And I believe that together we can have a very good nation to live in. Yeah.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We're coming back into a very big conversation from last week, which is the media budget review. A lot of people waited for this. In fact, and I'm going to continuously commend the PR team at the finance ministry. They did such an incredible job. I'm a PR person, so anytime I see anything nice done in PR, I'm really excited. They started the campaign of educating Ghanaians on what the media budget review was. So they had videos circulating talking about how what it meant for the finance minister to go to parliament, what he was going to do, what it means to our economy. And I thought it was really great. This is the first time I'm actually seeing that. And so I wrote on my status that this government, what you have to give to them is that they are showing us that their leader is a communications person.
Yes.
Because they are really communicating. They shape the narrative before you decide to shape the narrative for them. And so that's something we have to give to them, by the way. But whilst we're that, when he got to Parliament last week, he mentioned a few things. Today we're going to be focusing on education, health, and transportation. Now, he said his government has deployed 24,000 pieces of medical equipment. And then he talked about in the education, we are building 10 new secondary schools with 537 million US Ghana. Is US dollars? The US Ghana cities. US dollars. Is it US dollars or Ghana cities? Ghana cities.
Ghana cities, yes.
Has been paid for the no stress policy, which is for the
fees, the first
the first years
Yes.
in the university. And then so we've done this too. Now let's go straight into the the health sector. Different things you'd say are concerns, from the no bed to the infrastructure around the entire health sector, from hospitals not being built. In fact, who made this comment in Parliament that they should go back to the 1D1F and the Agenda 111 if the 24-hour economy wasn't working or yet. Because what we're experiencing now is we're either at the same place when it comes to unemployment, or we're getting worse because new businesses haven't erupted as much as we wanted it to, as per government intervention. And so if we look at the Agenda 111 project, which was going to give nurses, hospitals to work at, doctors, hospitals to work at, in fact, people to have quality health care, then that's a policy that might not have worked in the way we wanted it to work, but if we fine-tune it a little bit, then we're going to make some progress as a country. And then going back to the 1D1F, that's also supposed to give jobs to the Ghanaian people. So if we looked at a policy like that, then if the government, instead of going all the way around to set a whole new policy or a whole new agenda, then you can employ 1D1F into the 24-hour economy. I think someone made this comment in Parliament, and I thought it was a really brilliant one, honestly. When I thought about it, it's like, it's a policy that government had invested in. Let's not just throw it away because it doesn't, it's not ours. But rather, let's look at how we can fine-tune it and work with it. What do you think?
Okay.
Sorry not to cut you. I've sent you the news item on the
Okay,
galamsey, so
I'll
you
look
can
at
check
it.
it on our
I think I've
WhatsApp.
seen, I'll look at it. Okay, please go ahead.
So, talking about the media budget review and what it entails, I think that this government has shown good faith that is moving beyond promises, to policy translation into measurable actions that, especially in education and health, quite heavy investments that have impact that will be far-reaching. Maybe your last statement about someone talking about 1D1F, I will leave it for the politicians to discuss when it's their turn. But
as a policy, I'm not a politician.
The last time I checked, 1D1F
Didn't
was
happen.
fraught with. I mean, it's like they are fine policies on paper. So I do not see how a president of the day, coming from where we came from, and that should always be a constant reminder. You see, when you look back to move forward, it scopes you and gives you a better perspective. We have come from, if you talk about, we are stagnating in terms of job creation. Yes, I think is a very good concern, and we should all be worried. But again, we cannot be sulking all the time. If we know that we're just coming out from a situation where the economy was plunged into death iceberg, where inflation was at the all-time highest, where exchange rate, all of this, government committing the economy into the hands of IMF, leaving the current government with DDP arrangement that they cannot ignore. So you see, you have money. You need to now deal with this, and then at the same time implement some of your own things. These are the things that we are. So for us in the the CSO space, we are not going with the rented press and the cacophonous propaganda from the politicians. No, the fact is that you can now see that we are having real things happening. For the government to deploy 240,000 pieces of medical equipment, it means that across public health sector, what it means is that the referral system, the pressure on the teaching hospitals, every minor issue they have to refer to Kolubu, they have to refer to Konfanoch will reduce. You see, because it also means that diagnosis and medical care will be enhanced. These are the things we need to talk about. Budget is not just the numbers that it presents. It's about the impact it makes on the lives of people. So for me, I think that we should support government, give government all the brilliant ideas, not the lofty ones that exist only on paper, that the politicians would throw in to confuse people. Like the gentleman said, the MPP is trying to confuse people from the facts and the noise. He'll come at him very soon, so I'll leave them to do their fight. But the reality is that the government has shown good faith that it's moving beyond promises to translating policies to measurable action. And we can see if every one of these polyclinics, chip compounds have these medical consumables and equipment, that would not make people rush to the Kolubus and the yes. Look, we are doing ourselves a great service, and easing the pressure on the old things that it's sad when sometimes you go to the facility and every single lab you now have to cross road and go to a private person.
Yeah.
Yes. Every single lab that you have to cross to the private vendor for that service.
Yeah.
So I think the government needs commendation for everything it's doing in such pivotal areas like health and education.
Okay, and I wanted you to speak more on education because that's your forte.
Yes.
The kind of advancement, and gentlemen, I'm going to come to you very soon. The kind of advancement you think the educational sector, you've been there for years, that you think it needs. Are we making any progress?
We are great progress so far. I mean, if you look at the interventions that have been rolled out under the Honorable Education Minister Aruna. Fantastic gentleman. I was very happy when he was named the education minister because I know he understands the essence of using policy to shape practice, which is why before he comes out to say anything, they've done the paperwork and they know it's going to work. This no stress policy, maybe you have no idea the impact it's having on families. Where we sit, we get, even when it delays small, the calls you get, and the way and when they get their alert, if whatever they paid have been reimbursed to them, the jubilation, because that money will be moved to do something else. So if a government is doing that, I know that now they've given teachers who would accept to be posted into peri-urban and rural areas steady leave with pay, a whole lot of packages that is making the profession, the teaching profession, and of course affecting quality teaching as well.
Yeah.
To build 10 new secondary schools, I would have wished that they even tackle GHS, the junior high, but that's okay. It's big because what the free SHS did to us was in so many ways more detrimental than yes. Oh, we of course we flagged it several times before it was not that it's bad
policy at itself.
Yes, but how it was implemented, the rush, so we have small spaces densely populated with students. It is affecting quality of teaching. It is affecting even the way they live, and it affected the entire academic calendar. Okay. So new infrastructure. before you can do, say, there is this local proverb that say, "Uni veranda, Wontumi ado." Yes, like if you don't have a veranda, you cannot have monkey as your pet because monkey needs space to do what it has to do. So before the free SHS was rolled out, we should have rigorously embarked on infrastructure expansion.
Okay.
So that there will be adequate room for these people. Just putting them there with not commensurate mechanisms to mitigate the challenges that will come with it affected the quality of education that our children that. So the 10 new schools and all the policies that the government is implementing, it's commendable. And again, please don't let the politicians.
And I'll go back to say what I to do what I like to do. Play the Jesus advocate.
Yes, okay.
Where I say that again, I didn't understand the free SHS policy and its implementation fully. I think in December 2024, I had a beautiful panel session with students from the senior high schools and the university, and the freshers in the university. And it was 3 girls over here who were sitting right across me that explained to me what the free SHS, they were between 16 and 18 or so.
Yeah.
These ladies did a better job than the entire NDC did MPP did in 4 years. They explained to me how impactful, these are children, how impactful the free SHS policy was. And then I asked one of them, but they said you don't have food. You know how you're talking to children, you don't have food and all of that. They were like, we are better in school. And then they can fix the problems than this. I'm reading to you, I'm telling you verbatim what a 16-year-old told me on this couch.
Yeah.
We are better in school than being on the streets and being abused. Because whilst we are in school, they can fix the problems. So I'm borrowing her words.
Yeah.
Are we not better off for the policy to have rolled for us to see what the problems could be than to wait to fix all the problems before fixing all the things that we could, all the issues that we could, project to happen before we roll the free SHS out? Briefly touch on that because we have to let the gentleman speak.
I think that the narrative that was sold out, attaching free and hammering on the free, actually got most people to not think of the fact that education ought to be quality and nothing else. If you miseducate or you ill-educate, that person is more dangerous to society. So the children obviously were speaking from the things that their parents have been saying, the jubilation, that the fact that they were not going to pay anything. But having come thus far, we now know that these sex tapes emerging from schools, the physical abuse emerging from schools, teacher, all these issues goes back to one thing: the free we talked about. So nobody really, there was no space for us to deal with the issues head on.
Okay.
Maybe if a teacher has to, a teacher who is supposed to handle 25 people is dealing with 180 people. Just do the mathematics.
That teacher has no. By the way, he's not trying to clear you people that are irresponsible.
No.
He's not
I'm talking
that.
about the.
He's not
the,
saying you
the
can
challenges.
Your stress on children.
No.
That's not what he said.
The challenges that come. Yes.
Mr. Travis, Jesse, please take it away.
Mimi, how many minutes do I have?
have?
How many minutes do I have?
2 minutes.
No, Mimi, you can't give me 2 minutes. You gave me 10 minutes. I was reading the time because I need to have a review on the budget.
You don't have.
No, this is not about just Mimi. You gave him 10 minutes.
Please, and I can say that we've ended the show. I'm just telling you that you don't have to use 10 minutes to narrate a situation.
But you can also give me 2 minutes. All right, so I know it's your show, but then you can also give me 2 minutes.
Please,
Mimi,
I can give you 2 minutes and let's go.
I'll not mind you.
You don't mind me.
All right, so my submission on the media review budget will focus on 2 key angles.
Okay.
The first has to do with what the data says, and the second has to do with the health of the economic realities, or what we call the connection between the data and the realities on ground. I mean, it's true that most of the economic indicators look good. In fact, real GDP growth, overall real GDP growth, exchange rate, inflation rate, I mean, they will point to some good direction, largely because this economy is propped up by gold, which is very worrying, because gold is a volatile product and Ghana has absolutely zero control over the price of gold on the international market. And so should gold suffer the cocoa scenario, it would be disastrous for the economy of this country. Aside that, there were some inaccuracies in the media review budget that we need to bring to light and maybe some possible corrections. The first inaccuracy has to do with the fact that the minister said there will be no, this is the first time there will be no supplementary budget in the media review budget, which is completely false, Mimi. In Kenoforiata's 2023 media review budget, he said specifically on page 3, paragraph 18 to 21, that there will be no supplementary budget in this year's media review budget. So it has happened before under the MPP. Another inaccuracy relates to the fact that the minister said this is the first time Ghana has recorded GDP in nominal terms of over 100 billion US dollars, which is completely false. And I don't know where the minister got his fact from. In MPP, and MPP in 2024, Mimi, we recorded GDP in nominal terms of over 1.2 billion Ghana cedis, which in today's value will give you over 100 billion US dollars. So it has happened before. Another inaccuracy on page 82 of the media review budget, the minister said the MPP handed over an inflation rate of over 50% to the NDC administration, which is not the case. We handed over an inflation rate of 23% to the NDC administration. So I can go on and on and on with the inaccuracies in the media review budget. But you know what? Let's put the figures aside and deal with the realities on the field, whether they really accept what the economic indicators are saying. You know, statistics, they say, it's like a bikini. It reveals a lot of facts. You didn't.
When did that one start?
It's statistics is like a bikini, Mimi. I mean, it reveals a lot of parts to you, but also conceals the most critical detail. It is public knowledge that the economic indicators somehow look good. But the critical issue here is over the market, prices of goods and services are not being patronized. They are not being patronized because people do not have the purchasing power, largely due to unemployment issues in this country. Now, if we look at the unemployment issues in this country, Mimi, it has not changed so much. In fact, the current unemployment rate as of today is not so much different as of what it used to be in 2024. The general unemployment rate in 2024 was 13.5%. Today, as we speak, the general unemployment rate is 13%. Just a nominal decrease of 0.5%.
So there's progress there.
No, that's not much progress, please.
You live in
I
Ghana.
don't like that.
No.
Me, I don't like that.
Now, the youth
You're talking
unemployment as of 2024 was
what if it got worse?
32%. Chairman, I'm talking. Now, the youth unemployment
Yes, you're
rate
going to behave yourself.
in 2024
You're going to behave yourself.
was 32%.
Yeah,
Today, as we speak, youth unemployment rate is 32.5%. So you agree with me that there is an increase here. Now, it's very troubling, especially for an administration, Mimi, that campaigned on the promise of job creation. And even went to the extent of having a policy called the 24-hour economy, with over 110 million Ghana cedis of taxpayers' money invested in that policy. And yet, Mimi, there is no clear evidence of significant employment impact. And the government of the day is even struggling to give us a comprehensive figure of the total number of people employed as a result of the policy. Funny enough, you go around some of the communities and you see them building 24-hour markets. And you ask yourself, how do you wake up in the morning and decide to buy more just because there is a market near you? No, people buy because there is a demand for it, and also the individual has the purchasing power for the product. Now, if you do the media review budget, categorically, you hardly come across a detailed review on the Nketi policy. Now, I'm much particular about the policy because it borders on job creation, as we were talking about. Taxpayers' money invested in that particular policy, and also the mindset idea of increasing the self-sufficiency rate from 12% to 75%. Now, the self-sufficiency rate means that our reliance on external poultry products will reduce. And so currently, our reliance on internal poultry products is 12%, which is very bad. And so the president's idea was to increase it to 75% so that we will not rely much on external poultry products. And so we needed a review on the policy, especially at a critical moment where people have started preparing light soup and pepper soup with the Nketi bears. We needed to know whether the policy has failed or it's on the verge of collapsing, because taxpayers' money always deserve answers. And so we needed a review on the Nketi policy. Where have we gotten to in terms of the self-sufficiency rate? Because the whole idea about the Nketi policy is to create jobs for people and also to reduce our reliance on external poultry products. And now people have started consuming the birds already. And it got to a point where the consultant of the policy came out to say that instead of the 50 birds per household, people receive 3 to 1 birds per household. So we need to know a detailed review of the policy, where we've got into in terms of the Nketi policy, because we can't just invest taxpayers' money into a policy and at the end of the day, the minister will appear before an assurance committee and tell us people have consumed the birds.
That is not something we expect from a minister. So I was expecting an answer from the media review budget. And so, Mimi, my headline statement on this media review budget will be that the economic realities do not conform with the economic indicators at all. And I don't know if you've had knowledge of some of the videos from your sister stations, Joy News and TV3, from some women explain that they don't even understand inflation. They don't understand the GDP that we are talking about, Mimi. The only thing they understand is that at the end of the day, people will come and patronize their products. And that is the health of the economic realities we are talking about here. People are not feeling the impact of the economic indicators. And so it's high time that Ato Forcing begin to look at some of these areas and pay much attention to it. Okay. We were talking about the health sector, that the government has procured over 24,000 medical equipment to most of the public hospitals. I think it's a going in the right direction. Coming from a health background, I work in the lab as a fertility scientist, so I know some of the pressing issues in our government institutions. I believe that it's high time we pursue healthcare sovereignty in this country, and not only in Ghana, Africa, because we live in a country where we almost import everything from external countries. It's high time that we have professionals who can be able to manufacture some of the medical vaccines and medications that we import from some of these developed countries. Nanado did his best to establish what we call the National Vaccine Institute. And I've seen President Mahama also putting in some effort to bring in professionals on field to operationalize the institute. And I think that is something good for the country. And so healthcare sovereignty is something that we must pursue towards. We live in a country where most ladies are interested in contraceptives, but most of the contraceptives are imported. But we have professionals in this country that can manufacture locally produced contraceptives that can be produced by our own people without even having much taxes on some of these products. And so I believe that Ghana has gotten to a stage where we must pursue healthcare sovereignty so that we can be able to produce our own vaccines, medications, and that will also create jobs for the good people of this country. And so I believe that maybe going forward, the conversation should be centered on some of these areas that I'm talking about, that the healthcare sovereignty in this country is really, really important, because we almost import everything outside Ghana, and that is very bad.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jesse. Benjamin, yes. I think there was an area I wanted you to go into instead, but...
let me say that my view on the budget is to say that is to headline it with Ato is forcing.
Okay, well done.
One of the major things that Ato Forcing did, which for me, Dr. Ato Forcing, thank you, did, which for me is very significant, is a physical discipline. The issue has always been about how politicians spend the money. And if you realize that almost everybody, even including the opposition, complaining that Atu is not releasing money.
Yes.
You don't just release money. Especially when you have cancelled a lot of taxes, which are the sources of the revenue generation mechanism for the state. So the fiscal discipline, we were here. When Jesse's government went for loans, and the only thing they did is to use the loan to organize Wache Party. We saw it. We were in this country. Kenke Party. Kenke Party. And they use someone's bank as a special purpose vehicle. Anytime Ghana takes loan, then that bank is benefiting. We are here today, the person cannot come to Ghana. Are we not in this country? Were we not in this country? Inflation. As we are here now, inflation has been reduced from 28.3% to 5.4%. So you realize that during the latter end of the Akufo-Addo administration, you will have to pay more Ghana cedis to get your usual bottle of water. Now you realize that the rate at which prices increases has reduced drastically. That is what we mean by inflation. Debt to GDP ratio. The debt to GDP ratio has moved from 61.4% to 44.7%. Institutional investment. The government has gradually started to establish institutions. These are not just ad hoc or knee-jerk measures that government is putting in place. See, my co-panelist made a point. You see the free SHS we are talking about? Nobody is against the free SHS. But to implement a policy of that magnitude, there was the need at first to put infrastructure in place. MPP didn't do that. And so what he's saying is very true. We are having a lot of challenges with the free SHS problem. Of course, you said that students came here. You were trying to counter him by saying that students came here and they were saying that it's better to be in the school than to be in the house. Of course, that argument, it sounds right. But you see, the focus when it comes to education is on quality. Because you see, like my co-panelist again said, when you miseducate people, it's more dangerous than not even educating them at all. Because when you miseducate them, you provide them with the wrong information, and they're going to depend on that wrong information to take decisions to the detriment of the country. For example, if you tell a nurse that you can use this dosage of medicine to cure this sickness, and that gets into his head, that knowledge to delete it will be very difficult. Or you go to the hospital and start killing people instead of saving them.
Right.
That is what miseducation can do. So, of course, the free SHS is a good policy. No one is against it. NDC has demonstrated its commitment to the free SHS. Indeed, the Minister of Education has said that is it September next year or something? I've forgotten the timeline.
2029.
That will do away with the double track system, which is a means by which we want to improve the free SHS. In fact, recently, arrears concerning something we call intervention for the past 3 years, when the Justice government was in power, has been paid by the NDC administration. You can ask any teacher at all. 3 years arrears has been paid. We just squandered. Everybody was happy. This was something that was to help motivate teachers to continue teaching and their effort. Yes, we know that sometimes the salary structure for all employees in Ghana, we always complain. But the small things we can do to help improve the system. NDC is doing it. The reset agenda is on. And I think that Jesse should gradually start considering joining the NDC to help actually entrench the research agenda. But because this research agenda is actually also resetting MPP, and you gradually see that the MPP is gradually diminishing. And by the time MPP will become a real political party, Jesse will have been 90 years old. You should think about it.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Well, they will say tomorrow is pregnant. You can't be sure.
Of course.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me as we delved into a few conversations that are very important to you Ghanaians. And that's what we try to do over here. Gentlemen, thank you. Benjamin Kwame Amankwa is NDC Communications Team member. Alhassan Kojo Beidu, President, Center for Education, Leadership, Policy and Innovation. Mr. Beidu.
Yep.
Yes. What are your social media handles? I'm told to get your social media handles for
CELP Africa. Just
CELP Africa.
Africa,
so it's CELP in cap. PI. CELP Africa on all social media platforms. Jesse Jakes is NPP Communications Team member. You can find him, Jesse Jakes, on all social media platforms. He's always there saying something. He's always there saying something. Gentlemen, thank you. Thank you. It's always a delight to have these conversations with you. And to you out there, like I always say, we keep learning and growing together as a Ghanaian. Do not sit there and watch these politicians do what they want to do. Let's keep them and hold them accountable. My name is Miriam Uduak Mensah. We're back again tomorrow from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Have a good day.